October 15th, 1943. Camp Lucky Strike, Le Havre, France. The metallic clink of mess kits echoed across the muddy compound as 50,000 American soldiers lined up for what would become the most consequential beverage service in military history. In each soldier's cup, steaming brown liquid dissolved from a single teaspoon of crystalline powder. No brewing time, no coffee grounds, no elaborate preparation rituals that had defined morning routines since the Boston Tea Party. Just add hot water and stir. The soldiers didn't know they were witnessing a revolution that would reshape American culture more profoundly than any military victory. They couldn't foresee that this simple brown powder, dismissed by coffee purists as inferior substitute, would transform millions of American homes into laboratories of convenience. The mathematics of cultural change were being written not in battle plans, but in production statistics that would shatter every assumption about how Americans consumed their most essential beverage. What began as wartime necessity would evolve into peacetime obsession, creating the first generation of Americans who measured morning productivity in teaspoons rather than brewing time. The transformation had begun 2 years earlier when the United States Army Quartermaster Corps faced an impossible logistics challenge. How do you deliver fresh coffee to millions of soldiers scattered across 6 continents without the infrastructure, time, or stability that traditional brewing required? The answer arrived in the form of a process patented by Satoru Kato in 1901, refined by George Washington in 1910, and perfected by the Nestlé Company through decades of Swiss precision engineering. Instant coffee represented more than convenience. It represented the industrialization of America's most sacred morning ritual. Major Robert Chen of the Army Quartermaster Corps had calculated the staggering logistics of conventional coffee service. Each division of 15,000 men required 2,000 pounds of coffee beans daily. Those beans needed to be roasted, ground, and brewed, using equipment that weighed tons and required skilled personnel. The fuel consumption alone for boiling water and maintaining brewing temperatures consumed resources desperately needed elsewhere. More critically, traditional coffee service required stability. Brewing required time, equipment, and conditions that battlefield operations rarely provided. Soldiers advancing through Italian mountains or Pacific atolls couldn't pause for elaborate coffee preparation, yet coffee wasn't luxury, it was necessity. Medical surveys confirmed that caffeine consumption directly correlated with combat effectiveness, morale, and unit cohesion. The instant coffee solution eliminated every logistical nightmare while delivering the essential caffeine that kept American forces operational. A single case of instant coffee weighed 48 pounds and provided the equivalent of 384 pounds of traditional coffee beans. The weight savings alone freed up cargo space for ammunition, medical supplies, and other critical materials. But the true revolution wasn't logistical, it was cultural. American soldiers who had grown up watching their mothers tend elaborate coffee percolators, who had learned that proper coffee required patience, attention, and skill, discovered that identical caffeine delivery could be achieved through simple addition of hot water to powder. Private First Class James Morrison from Iowa wrote to his wife in December 1943, describing his first encounter with instant coffee. The taste was different, he admitted, but the convenience was remarkable. No grounds to dispose of, no equipment to clean, no waiting for brewing cycles. In combat conditions where every minute mattered, instant coffee provided immediate caffeine delivery without ceremony or delay. What Morrison couldn't anticipate was how his experience would reshape his expectations permanently. When he returned to Iowa in 1946, the elaborate morning coffee ritual his wife maintained seemed unnecessarily complicated. Why spend 15 minutes brewing when identical results could be achieved in 30 seconds? The production statistics told the story of unprecedented industrial mobilization. The Nestlé plant in Marysville, Ohio, converted entirely to military instant coffee production in 1942. Working 3 shifts around the clock, the facility processed 50 million pounds of coffee beans annually into 10 million pounds of instant coffee powder. The concentration ratio revealed the engineering achievement. Every pound of instant coffee represented 5 pounds of traditional beans, achieving identical caffeine content in 1/5 the weight and volume. But Nestlé wasn't alone. Maxwell House, owned by General Foods Corporation, developed competing instant coffee processes specifically for military contracts. Their facility in Hoboken, New Jersey, employed over 3,000 workers producing instant coffee exclusively for the War Department. The competition drove innovation in freeze-drying, spray-drying, and crystallization techniques that would define post-war instant coffee quality. The technical specifications demanded by military contracts pushed instant coffee quality beyond anything available to civilian consumers. Army specifications required that reconstituted instant coffee match the caffeine content, flavor profile, and psychological satisfaction of traditionally brewed coffee. Failure to meet these standards meant contract cancellation and potential accusations of undermining military effectiveness. Dr. Martin Schweitzer, chief chemist for the General Foods Instant Coffee Program, later recalled the pressure of wartime development. Every batch was tested not just for taste, but for caffeine content, measured in milligrams per serving. Military nutritionists had determined that soldiers required specific caffeine levels to maintain alertness during extended operations. Our instant coffee had to deliver precise pharmaceutical effects disguised as familiar beverage service. The breakthrough came through perfecting spray drying technology that preserved volatile compounds responsible for coffee aroma and flavor. Traditional instant coffee production had eliminated these compounds, creating products that delivered caffeine but lacked psychological satisfaction. Military specifications demanded complete sensory replacement for traditional coffee, including the aromatic experience that soldiers associated with home and normalcy. By 1943, American instant coffee production exceeded 100 million pounds annually, virtually all destined for military consumption. The scale represented more instant coffee than had been consumed globally during the entire previous decade. American soldiers were becoming the world's first population to consume instant coffee as their primary caffeine source, rather than occasional convenience substitute. The psychological impact extended far beyond caffeine delivery. Instant coffee represented technological mastery over natural processes. Soldiers who had grown up accepting that coffee required time, equipment, and skill discovered that American industrial innovation had eliminated those constraints. The same nation that could produce aircraft faster than enemies, could shoot them down, could reduce complex brewing processes to simple powder dissolution. Master Sergeant William Torres, supply officer for the 82nd Airborne Division, documented the cultural transformation in his unit diary. Men who had complained about instant coffee quality in 1942 were requesting extra rations by 1944. They had adapted not just to the taste, but to the convenience. Soldiers on patrol could prepare coffee anywhere, anytime, using canteen cups and heating tablets. The flexibility transformed coffee from scheduled meal component to on-demand performance enhancement. The letters soldiers wrote home revealed the depth of conversion. Lieutenant Colonel Frank Patterson wrote to his brother in Michigan, describing how instant coffee had changed his daily routine. No longer did morning preparation require elaborate ritual. Coffee became available whenever needed, measured by individual preference, prepared without equipment or cleanup. The efficiency appealed to men accustomed to military precision and time management. But the real transformation was occurring in the minds of millions of American women reading those letters. Wives, mothers, and sweethearts learned that their men overseas had discovered coffee preparation methods that eliminated the elaborate morning routines that had defined feminine domestic competence for generations. The implications were profound and would reshape American kitchens within a decade. The Quartermaster Corps surveys conducted in 1944 revealed statistics that would terrify traditional coffee companies after the war. Over 78% of American soldiers expressed satisfaction with instant coffee quality. More significantly, 43% stated they preferred instant coffee convenience over traditional brewing methods. Among soldiers who had been overseas for more than 18 months, preference for instant coffee rose to 61%. These weren't temporary wartime adaptations. These were permanent taste preference changes occurring among millions of young American men who would return home as consumers with fundamentally altered expectations about coffee preparation, convenience, and daily routines. The transformation accelerated through the winter of 1944 as American forces pushed deeper into Europe. Captain Donald Reeves of the 101st Airborne Division recorded in his combat diary how instant coffee had become more than beverage, it had evolved into tactical advantage. During the Battle of the Bulge, when German forces surrounded American units in freezing Belgian forests, traditional coffee brewing became impossible. Fires attracted enemy attention, equipment froze solid, and brewing time meant vulnerability to attack. Yet, American soldiers maintained their caffeine intake through instant coffee, prepared with melted snow heated over tiny fuel tablets. German prisoners interrogated after the battle expressed amazement that American troops maintained high morale and alertness despite impossible conditions. They attributed American resilience to superior equipment and training, never suspecting that instant coffee powder played a crucial role in maintaining combat effectiveness during their most desperate offensive. The industrial achievement behind this battlefield advantage was staggering. By 1945, American instant coffee production required processing facilities that consumed more coffee beans than entire nations had imported before the war. The Maxwell House plant in Jacksonville, Florida, operated 16 spray-drying towers simultaneously, each one capable of converting 2,000 pounds of liquid coffee extract into 400 pounds of instant powder daily. The energy requirements were enormous, but the strategic value justified every kilowatt consumed. Technical innovations driven by military specifications revolutionized food preservation science. The freeze-drying process developed for premium instant coffee grades created the foundation for post-war developments in preserved foods, pharmaceuticals, and industrial chemicals. Dr. Elizabeth Morrison, chief food scientist at the Quartermaster Food and Container Institute, later testified that instant coffee research generated over 40 patents that would transform American food processing across multiple industries. The quality control standards imposed by military contracts exceeded anything previously demanded in food manufacturing. Every batch underwent chemical analysis for caffeine content, moisture levels, and solubility rates. Sensory evaluation panels composed of soldiers on leave tested each production run against traditional coffee standards. Failure rates below 95% satisfaction resulted in batch rejection and contract penalties. This obsessive attention to quality transformed instant coffee from wartime substitute into genuine alternative to traditional brewing. Soldiers who had initially complained about instant coffee taste were writing home by 1944, requesting that families purchase civilian versions for care packages. The military specifications had created instant coffee superior to most civilian products available before the war. The economic implications were revolutionary. Traditional coffee service required substantial capital investment in equipment, ongoing maintenance costs, and skilled preparation time. Instant coffee eliminated equipment requirements, reduced preparation time to seconds, and required no special skills. The cost analysis conducted by Army logistics officers revealed that instant coffee delivered identical caffeine and satisfaction at 60% the total cost of traditional coffee service when all factors were considered. These economic advantages weren't lost on American businesses observing wartime efficiency improvements. Restaurant owners, factory managers, and office supervisors recognized that instant coffee could reduce labor costs, eliminate equipment maintenance, and increase employee productivity through faster beverage service. The post-war commercial market was being created by military necessity and industrial innovation. The letters flowing from European battlefields to American homes carried more than personal news. They carried detailed descriptions of instant coffee convenience that challenged fundamental assumptions about domestic efficiency. Sergeant Michael O'Brien wrote to his wife in Boston describing how he could prepare perfect coffee in 30 seconds, using only his mess kit and heating tablet. Why, he asked, did she spend 20 minutes every morning with elaborate percolator rituals when identical results could be achieved instantly? These questions multiplied across millions of American households as soldiers shared their overseas experiences. Women who had taken pride in their coffee brewing expertise discovered that their husbands had learned different standards of efficiency and convenience. The domestic implications were profound and would reshape American kitchens within a decade. The psychological transformation extended beyond individual preferences to collective cultural attitudes. American soldiers had learned that traditional processes weren't necessarily superior processes, that innovation could improve upon centuries of accepted practice, and that efficiency without quality compromise represented genuine progress rather than mere convenience. Private Robert Chen from California wrote in his journal about the philosophical implications of instant coffee. If American industry could perfect coffee preparation to this degree, what other traditional processes could be improved through scientific innovation? The war was teaching soldiers that American technological superiority extended into every aspect of daily life, including the most mundane domestic routines. The statistical evidence of transformation was overwhelming. Surveys conducted by the Army Morale Services Division in early 1945 revealed that 67% of American soldiers planned to continue using instant coffee after returning home. Among soldiers with more than 2 years overseas experience, the percentage rose to 74%. These weren't temporary adaptations to difficult conditions, but permanent preference changes that would reshape the American coffee market. The production capacity built for military consumption created industrial infrastructure that would flood civilian markets after the war. The Nestlé Marysville plant alone possessed capacity to supply instant coffee to over 50 million American households. The Maxwell House facilities could serve another 30 million households. Combined with smaller regional producers, American instant coffee capacity exceeded total pre-war coffee consumption by substantial margins. Food industry analysts recognized the implications immediately. The American Coffee Corporation's 1945 strategic planning document warned that traditional coffee roasters faced potential obsolescence unless they adapted to changing consumer preferences shaped by military experience. Millions of American men would return home accustomed to instant coffee convenience and quality. Their purchasing decisions would reshape the entire coffee industry within a decade. The cultural resistance to instant coffee that had characterized pre-war attitudes was crumbling under the weight of practical experience. American soldiers had discovered that instant coffee wasn't inferior substitute, but superior solution to traditional brewing limitations. This knowledge was spreading through American society via millions of personal testimonies that carried more credibility than any advertising campaign. The transformation was accelerating beyond military consumption as defense plant workers, shipyard employees, and aircraft coffee advantages in industrial factory personnel discovered instant settings. The convenience of individual portion control, elimination of brewing equipment maintenance, and instant availability during shift changes made instant coffee ideal for wartime industrial operations. By spring 1945, American instant coffee consumption exceeded 150 million pounds annually when military and civilian usage were combined. The United States had become the world's first society where instant coffee represented a significant percentage of total caffeine consumption rather than occasional convenience option. The manufacturing revolution had created something unprecedented in human history, a generation of consumers who expected convenience without compromise. The instant coffee plants humming across America weren't just processing coffee beans. They were processing cultural expectations that would reshape domestic life for decades. The technical specifications demanded by wartime contracts had pushed instant coffee quality beyond what most civilians had ever experienced. Military nutritionists required that each serving deliver exactly 95 milligrams of caffeine, the precise amount research had determined necessary for optimal alertness. The spray-drying towers at General Foods operated at temperatures calibrated to preserve volatile compounds that traditional instant coffee production had destroyed. Every batch underwent chromatography analysis to ensure flavor profile consistency that matched traditionally brewed coffee. Corporal Anthony Russo from New Jersey wrote to his mother in March 1945, describing his amazement at instant coffee quality improvements. The stuff they're giving us now tastes better than what we got at Romano's Diner back home. No bitterness, no grounds in your teeth, just pure coffee flavor in 30 seconds. His letter captured the technological achievement that military specifications had demanded and American industry had delivered. The industrial capacity supporting this transformation defied pre-war imagination. The Folgers plant in Kansas City had converted 3 entire production lines to military instant coffee, processing 25,000 pounds of green coffee beans daily into 5,000 pounds of concentrated powder. The mathematics were staggering. Every teaspoon of instant coffee represented the concentrated essence of coffee beans that would have filled an entire cup using traditional brewing ratios. Quality control laboratories employed teams of chemists working around the clock to ensure batch consistency. Dr. Patricia Williams, supervising chemist at the Maxwell House Hoboken facility, later recalled the pressure of maintaining standards that exceeded civilian product specifications by substantial margins. Military contracts specified that reconstituted instant coffee must achieve 98% flavor compatibility with fresh brewed coffee as measured by blind taste panels. Civilian instant coffee typically achieved 70% compatibility at best. The breakthrough in aroma preservation represented years of research compressed into months of wartime urgency. Traditional instant coffee production eliminated the volatile oils responsible for coffee's psychological satisfaction. Military specifications demanded complete sensory replacement, including the aromatic experience soldiers associated with home and normalcy. The solution required developing encapsulation techniques that preserved these fragile compounds through the dehydration process. Staff Sergeant Robert Martinez documented the psychological importance of coffee aroma in his unit reports. When soldiers smelled reconstituted instant coffee, they experienced the same emotional responses as traditionally brewed coffee. The aroma triggered memories of home, family breakfasts, and peaceful morning routines. This psychological component proved as important as caffeine delivery for maintaining morale during extended combat operations. The production statistics revealed an industrial mobilization that rivaled aircraft manufacturing in scope and complexity. By late 1944, American instant coffee facilities operated 247 spray-drying towers across 16 states, consuming 180 million pounds of coffee beans annually to produce 36 million pounds of instant coffee. The concentration process required massive amounts of energy, with the Nestlé Marysville plant alone consuming enough electricity to power a city of 50,000 residents. The technical workforce supporting instant coffee production included over 8,000 specialized employees, from chemical engineers managing spray drying parameters to quality control technicians conducting sensory evaluations. These workers developed expertise in food science applications that would revolutionize American food processing across multiple industries after the war ended. The economic transformation extended beyond coffee production to packaging, distribution, and retail infrastructure. Instant coffee required different storage conditions, shipping containers, and display methods compared to traditional coffee. The military contracts drove development of moisture-resistant packaging that would influence food preservation technology for decades. The transformation was complete by August 1945, when the last American soldiers shipped home carried more than victory medals in their duffel bags. They carried altered expectations about convenience, efficiency, and the possibilities of American innovation. The instant coffee revolution had begun with military necessity and evolved into cultural transformation. Millions of returning veterans would reshape American kitchens, demanding the same 30-second coffee preparation they had mastered on European battlefields and Pacific atolls. Traditional coffee companies scrambling to adapt would discover that their customers had experienced a better way. The brown powder that had sustained Allied victory would prove equally effective at conquering American breakfast tables, transforming a nation's morning ritual one teaspoon at a time.